All right, what's going on, everybody? Wasn't really planning to make a Dover video just because I was at the track. I'm still at the track this weekend, but with the weather and just really nothing going on Sunday, I figured might as well just hop on and make a quick picks video. So I already posted the spreadsheet. It's up on our Twitter at Fast Cars FM. Everybody knows by now, but the rain got delayed, and it's now going to turn into a Monday race, hopefully, if the weather stays clear, and be Monday at noon Eastern time. So nice thing is DraftKings actually extended the lock time, so we still have additional time to make lineups. Hence why I wanted to just, put together this quick video for everybody. So we did have practice yesterday, and then I was actually in the stands, and it started misting in like maybe 10, 15 minutes after they canceled qualifying. The mist kind of went away. So thought maybe they could have got qualifying in if they just would have waited a little bit longer. But nonetheless, they ended up canceling qualifying. So the grid was actually set by the formula. Did get a little bit of practice in, but practice was pretty choppy. I mean, a lot of cars were spinning out. It was, quick little short runs, come back down pit road. I think we had 3 or 4 cars spin out in practice. So we do have some data to lean on, which is nice. We did hear some teams about complaining about potential tire issues, especially with a clean track. With all the rain that we're getting, we're going to have a very clean track. So that'll be just one thing to kind of keep in mind. Hopefully it doesn't turn into, just tires blowing left and right. Not looking forward to that if it does. But what are we really leaning on? So for me, I want to lean on Dover track history and then also the 2022-23 similar track data. So I'm looking at intermediates. I'm looking at Dover and then tracks that I think race similar to Dover. So I would say Dover, Nashville, maybe even Darlington, to an extent. But you could even look at the some of the intermediate tracks that we were at this year as well. Like Las Vegas, for example. I don't think they're, one-to-one correlations, but you have to look at something, and that's kind of what I'm basing my decisions on here. So I am hanging out. I have an Airbnb, so I'll just be hanging out through the weekend. Be going back to the track tomorrow, so I'll be there. Expecting a limited crowd. I'll be up in turn one, so hopefully I see some of you guys there. Had a pretty cool experience for the Xfinity race. Um, didn't really get rained on. Had great parking, was able to, check out all the different merchandise, trailers, saw a couple of autograph signings, like Sam Mayer and Justin Allgaier were having some signings. Um, the fan zone, I mean, some of the stuff was a little bit limited with some of the weather, but for the most part, it was pretty good. Got to meet a lot of people, which was nice. Had a pretty good Xfinity race, made out pretty well on DraftKings, and then actually just stayed because the ARCA race actually got rained out on Friday. So basically kind of got a free ticket to the ARCA race, which was just kind of interesting to see the difference between the Xfinity series and the ARCA race. And then probably the highlight of the day, as you can see, I got my Ross Chastain hat on, but was able to meet up with Ross Chastain at a local like pizza place right outside the track. He was doing like a kind of impromptu quick autograph session. So went and got some pictures with him, got him to sign a couple shirts, a hat. Then he actually was eating dinner at the same restaurant that we were at, which was funny. And then, it was just a coincidence, but we had some extra time. So we just went to the casino, which overlooks the track. And sure enough, Ross was there too. So it was a pretty good day. Unfortunate with all the rain today, but hey, it just gives us more time to build lines, right? So looking at this race and looking at the slate, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of chalky plays here, so I think a lot of these lineups potentially could be duplicated. So it's really trying to figure out like, what chalky plays do you want in your line and what potential pivots do you want to look for? So expensive range, you got Larson, Byron, Elliott, Hamlin, Bell, and Truex. For me, my 2 favorite plays are going to be Larson and Elliott. Probably want at least one of them, potentially both of them in my lines. Larson looked pretty good in practice. He gives you some place differential upside. And Dover is arguably, one of Larson's best tracks as well. Even last year, I was at the Dover race and he spun, got some damage, and was able to recover with, a damaged vehicle. So luckily, he did get a little bit of practice time, posted a pretty good lap right behind Keselowski. Gives you some place differential upside, probably a safer play, but probably going to be pretty high owned too. So if you are expecting tire issues, maybe Larson gets unfortunate, has a tire issue. So if you're building multiple lineups, maybe, build some non-Larson lines too. Byron, I'm curious to see what Byron's ownership's going to be. Byron isn't historically great at Dover, but Hendrick Motorsports and Byron in general have been really good at intermediate tracks. So I think they're definitely trending in the right direction. It's just very expensive, 11-2 for Byron. And if you're playing Byron, you're most likely, depending on if you can get all three of them in a line, you're most likely sacrificing a Larson or an Elliott. So still prefer Larson and Elliott. That's why I got Byron at medium there. But I still think you should try to sprinkle him into lines. Really like Elliott. He won this race last year. It's been a couple of races now since his leg injury. So I think he's back, quote unquote, to normal. Posted some pretty good practice times, and he's just a machine at Dover. If you look at his track history here, it's hard not to go and feel confident plugging Chase Elliott into your line. And then after Larson and Elliott, my two next favorite plays as far as like potential, fast lap getters or potential lap leaders, I'm actually going to go to the JGR route. So I really like Denny Hamlin at Truex. I was also, like I said, at this race last year, Denny Hamlin was extremely fast, got unfortunate with the loose wheel, and then contact with Cody Ware, which kind of just ended his day. But he was getting ready to, check out on the field and lead a ton of laps. So if they can bring a similar setup, I think Hamlin could be an interesting, tournament play or even a nice pivot option to pair with a Larson or Elliott or potentially a Byron. Truex is basically the same play as Hamlin. I just prefer Hamlin a little bit more, just based off of practice times, track history, intermediate data. But it's almost the option A and option 1A basically. So I think Hamlin and Truex are very similar. Interesting thing about this slate is the front row. So you got Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell. Neither of them posted good times in practice, but we know clean air is king. So I think they could lead, some early laps, but I'm not really getting too aggressive with the early lap leader. I'd much rather just, it's 400 laps. It's relatively a long race. So I'm going to just try to focus more on some of those place differential upside drivers that hopefully can get to the front. Maybe it's at the end of stage one or potentially stage two. But I do have some lines with Bell as a lap leader, Kyle Busch as a lap leader, even like one or two lines as Blaney getting out there, which I don't think is super likely, or even Keselowski. I mean, Keselowski had a pretty good, practice session too, which was a little bit surprising. So like if you're just building one line or you're only building three lines, I think your focus should be Larson, Elliott, Hamlin, and Truex, and then sprinkling in, maybe some Byron in there. But for me, I'm gonna have a ton of Larson, a ton of Elliott. Getting down to the 8K range here. Ross is interesting. He was pretty good on the intermediates last year. Looking at his practice times, this weekend they aren't great, but he's pretty cheap. So he's also kind of a nice pivot. I would put him in the same category as Hamlin and Truex. I just like Hamlin and Truex a little bit more than Chastain. Kyle Busch starts on the pole, most likely going to lead the early part of this race. I'm just concerned that if we have tire issues, what could happen to him if he loses, a ton of place differential points, or B, if his race speed is similar to his practice speed, because his practice speed was not good. So my fear is he loses the lead and just continues to fall. But he has clean air, and we know how hard it is to pass in these cars too. So getting a lap leader for $9,600 is very attractive. So I definitely would recommend some lines with Busch, but he's not a main focus for me by any means. Not really getting to Harvick too much. I have him as medium, just based off of track history alone, and just kind of what he's done at intermediates. But he's just hard to get to. I don't really find myself landing on Harvick, or I have to go out of my way to get Harvick into my lines, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just think there's other plays around him that probably have a little bit more upside. Reddick's another driver I'm just not really getting to. I do like Logano, starting 26 for $8,800. Looks like a slam dunk place differential play. He's trapped a little bit, kind of in the mid pack, going to have, some dirty air, might struggle to kind of get through the field. But like I said, it's 400 lap race. getting a Penske car for $8,800. It starts 26, especially when it's Joey Logano. I really like that. I think he's really easy to pair, with potential Larson and Elliott, for example. Blaney, I don't know, like I said, I don't have a ton of Blaney. I do have him in like one or two lines just for the odd reason if he does get out front and lead some laps. But for me, I'm going to lean more on Kyle Busch and even Christopher Bell to lead some laps, potentially even Brad Keselowski. But my favorite lap leader of the three would be or of the four would be Kyle Busch, probably followed by Christopher Bell there. Um, Keselowski is interesting, 8.4, putting him in at medium just because of how fast he was in practice. Starts fourth, so not likely that he'll get out front and lead some laps, but he does have the track position, and I've seen crazier things happen. So I think he could honestly stay up there and lead some laps. It's a risky play, so definitely GPP only. I do not feel as confident in Chase Briscoe. Bubba Wallace, I like a lot. Very similar argument you could make to Joey Logano, just a little bit cheaper. I would say Logano has a lot more upside, and I think will have a better car than Bubba Wallace, but still getting a ton of place differential upside there. Suarez, I don't think many people are going to be on Suarez. I think he makes for an interesting GPP play. He did spin out in practice, so his practice times don't look great. He came down pit road, making multiple adjustments. Luckily, that team did not hit anything. But anytime you spin these cars out, you're just kind of asking for trouble. So little concern there, but I'm confident that the team, is going to overlook everything, make sure it's good to go. He should be fine, come Monday. So I really like him for tournaments, especially at his price. It's a pretty cheap price to get Daniel Suarez there. Chris Buescher, maybe you could make the same argument for Keselowski. He just didn't have as good as practice times as Keselowski had, so I'd rather just pay up for Brad as potential lap leader. I just don't see Buescher getting out front leading laps. Not that I see Keselowski doing that, but I just think Keselowski has a better chance. Really like Josh Berry. Hendrick Motorsports car at $7,500, starting 23rd, gives you a ton of place differential upside, really easy to get in the lines. He could easily be your third or fourth, I don't want to say dominator, but like third or fourth, like good play, I would say, from like a equipment standpoint and an upside standpoint, ton of value there. Not really getting the Stenhouse. Gibbs is kind of an interesting pivot, I would say, off of Josh Berry. I just like Josh Berry more. So if you're looking to potentially fade Berry, if you're looking for a pivot play, I think Gibbs is a similar type of play. I can see Gibbs finishing well. Really like Preece. I think his practice times were pretty good. Starts 30th, $6,900, pretty easy to get in the lines. Cindric is a nice tournament option if you're looking to pivot off of Preece, McDowell, Dillon, some of these high place differential types of plays. I think a lot of people are going to overlook Austin Cindric. So again, kind of going to find your little pivots here. You're going to pivot on, kind of your lap leaders. You're going to pivot off of Larson, pivot off of Elliott, or you're going to pivot off some of these place differential plays. Like I would just try to find like one or two little places to change, especially if you're building multiple lineups. Like just try to find your 12, 14 drivers or however many you have in your driver pool and just try to mix and match with kind of the different scenarios of like, okay, how do these 6 drivers work in a lineup together? That's at least how I, build lines. Really like McDowell, good practice time, starts 32nd. Again, I think a lot of people are just going to slam in Austin Dillon. So I think you can get some ownership, lower ownership with Preece and McDowell that have similar upside that Dillon has. Almirola, I'd much rather just play Cindric just based off of practice times. Dillon did hit the wall, so I do want to emphasize that. I think the team obviously is going to fix it. He should be fine, but it is always concerning when a team hits a wall in practice, spins the car out. Like it's not a slam dunk that he's going to show up on Monday with good speed. And I know a lot of the field's going to be on him. The problem is, he starts 36, so the chances, and he's only $6,300, so it's very easy for him to pay off that price tag. Even if he doesn't have a great day, you're not gonna, your lineup's not gonna be dead because Austin Dillon, finished 25th or even then, like he gives you, 11 place differential points right there. Like he should be fine. Eric Jones starts a little bit too close to the front. Allmendinger, more of a just tournament play, not really getting to him a ton. Todd Gilliland, I think, is fine, is a potential punt option. Not really getting to Haley too much. I'd rather just, play the place differential plays down here. Gregson starts deep. I think he's a trap play. He just has looked extremely slow, not only this weekend, but just the entire season. So I'm not really too crazy about those Legacy Motorsport Club cars. I don't know what it is about the equipment there. They have not been showing good speed. A driver who actually arguably did show some good speed, though, was Harrison Burton. So um, starts 31st, pretty cheap if you have to come down this low on the slate. But honestly, I think as far as upside goes, I'd much rather play LaJoy. LaJoy had some really good practice times. He's been running pretty well this season. I just feel more confident plugging LaJoy into my line, even though he starts a little bit further than Burton. And I wouldn't really get, to Yaley, Dillon, or McLeod. I think if you're building multiple lines, maybe, especially if you're expecting a lot of tire issues in this race, maybe you could sprinkle in, Brennan Poole in your lineup. But, I don't think Brennan Poole's going to finish any higher than like 25th. And that's probably going to be like an amazing day, for him if that even happens. The only argument you can make with playing with Brennan Poole is I can stack Larson, I can stack Elliott, I can stack, Hamlin, Truex, like Kyle Busch. Like you can really stack up on some of those high interest drivers that we have above versus like potentially have to sacrifice one of them and kind of build out more of a balanced lineup. So not really recommending it, but I don't hate it either. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of impromptu picks video. We got some people already on the spreadsheet, so I'll post this. I'll probably link it to the Twitter post, but yeah, hopefully you guys can, if you are here, hopefully you can hang around and make it to the race on Monday. Like I said, I'll be up in turn one. Try to come say hi if you see me. But yeah, best of luck and stay dry and hopefully we'll have a good day on Monday.